And we welcome you on into another episode of the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. It's Mitch Spinell and Mitchell Balla here to give you the latest of what's going on in the sporting world. Mitch, it's cold as hell outside right now. It's been cold as hell for the last 3 days.
You know what? Here's the thing, Mitch, is we say it's cold now, but when this is the exact same weather we get in March, we're gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's so hot out. It feels great.
I'm aware of this. Yeah, I'm aware of this.
To Mother Nature of the brutal winter we're going to experience here. And guess what? We're in Ohio, people. I'm used to it. I complain occasionally. I think there's days it's totally acceptable to complain, but I love it. I love the 4 seasons. I love the cold. I love the hot. I love the autumn. Best time of the year is the fall, autumn, just greatest time of the year. I mean, legends are born typically in the fall months, Mitch, as you would know. And then, you know, all the sports going on. So it's chilly. It's not cold. Cold was last year, you and I covering Lake and Maslin at Byers Field. That was cold.
That was cold all that way up in Parma there. And yeah, we'll get to a game that we covered this past week. But we want to go over the stuff that's been going on with big time sports. Obviously, we have a big schedule coming up here. We have a couple games to cover this coming weekend, which you'll be able to find on our local airwaves and online. Be sure to check out bigtimesportsohio.com/schedule for the latest information there. Obviously, we have this coming Friday. We have a pair of, first of all, we have a couple of games earlier on this week. We have on Thursday, we have New Philadelphia taking on Dover in a volleyball matchup over at the Crimson or at the New Philadelphia High School gym. You can find that game live. You can also find the replays of that later that night and the next day at 5 p.m. And on Friday, we'll have 2 games. New Philadelphia playing host to West Holmes. I'll be on the call that game with Matt Ritzert. And then we have Canton McKinley in Tom Benson taking on the Eagles of Glen Oak. So you can find those games later on. And then, of course, Saturday, we have what was supposed to be a doubleheader of soccer matches over at New Philly between the Quakers and Dover. It is now going to be only a boys match between the two sides. You can find that game Saturday at around 3:30. Actually, you can see the replay of that at 3:30 p.m. on Sunday, as well as the next day at 8 p.m. But you can find that game live as well, starting around 5 p.m. All right. So first off, we want to talk about some of the local stuff that's been going on. Obviously, we want to get to the football Week 8 recap. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of state-bound athletes in the Canton area. First of all, I want to give a big shout out to a pair of golf teams in the area, Jackson and who was it here? Green. The boys golf teams are heading to the Division I state tournament after the Bulldogs and the Polar Bears both finished in the final 2 of the 5 qualifying spots for teams to make it at Monday's Division I district tournament at Pine Hills. The Bulldogs finished 4th, the round of 305 team total. Jackson was 5th at 307. Green's Kyle Smith was the individual runner-up on the day. He shot a 69, 1 stroke behind medalist Brad Schill of Cleveland St. Ignatius. Jordan Kish was tied for 5th among the individuals with a 72. And those teams will play next Friday and Saturday at the Scarlet Course at the Ohio State University. Hudson, Akron Hoban, and Cleveland St. Ignatius also among the qualifying schools. A couple of our local ones in here. New Philadelphia finished 11th with a 330, so the Quaker season comes to a close there. You also had a couple of Hoover and Maslin players also qualifying in there as well, but a lot of stuff going on in the area. We'll get to it all here later on this week, but let's talk about the games that we were at this week, Mitch, because speaking of the Polar Bears, they played host to the McKinley Bulldogs on Friday night, and there was a lot of buildup going into that game. It was senior night. It was a packed house over that stadium. It was my first time over there. You guys have a lot of good facilities over there and a good crowd there to match it.
Not good cell service.
Not good cell service. No, that was frustrating. First of all, it was frustrating. My phone was at 20% when we got there, so I had to put on an energy saver the whole time, and it was hard for me to keep up the battery. And it actually died right as you dropped me off before we left to go home. And yeah, it was tough to like check the other scores because I couldn't get a good reception out there. And you even brought the hotspot.
We were at the hotspot, Mitch. You literally watched my phone stop accepting text messages saying I got signed out across all my devices. Like that's how bad it was getting. Yeah, and extremely frustrating. And then I'm there to get an interview, and the phone dies. It's just like this is unfortunate, but we were there. We were able to take some things away from that game on what was a beautiful, crisp autumn night.
That's the night. That's the sort of night that we were taking in. And then once the weekend hit, it was like this cold front, that chill front that came in and, kind of dropped it down to where, I have to start wearing hoodies on a regular basis. And I wear hoodies in here, but that's because it's in room temperature. But now I have to wear it outside as well. But we went to that game, and it's not that you want to say it was a bad football game, but it was just kind of sort of a one where there wasn't a lot of energy being built up between the two teams. And there were a number of errors that happened throughout the game. And first of all, happened in the first drive of the game where McKinley is facing, what was it, second down, third down, and they had multiple snaps go awry past Keaton Road on Friday night, but this one they were able to get bailed out on. He picks up the ball and then rolls to his right and finds, as you mentioned, with all the safeties and the lineman rushing, finds an open receiver down the field. He goes all the way for like a 60-some yard touchdown. They start off the game hot there. Jackson, I'll give him credit for, because McKinley missed the point after because they've been struggling with that all season. Jackson went down the field, and for a team that's really embraced the pass more this season than they have in years past, they were able to get some good rushes down the field. And the name escapes me, but the player who was starting his running back for the first time that Friday night Kyle Benson had a number of good drives down the field to put Jackson briefly on top.
Yeah, Mitch, Jackson decided to change some things up, and hard to blame them. They had lost 2 in a row coming off that tough loss at Lake, and then last week the loss to Glen Oak, or 2 weeks ago now rather. They had to shake something up because this McKinley team, although they're prone to turning the ball over, as we've seen in numerous games this year, or letting teams back into the game, Jackson just has not been able to run the ball effectively. And typically we saw this, looking ahead a little bit, we saw this in Ohio State Saturday. You try to get the ball in your playmakers' hands as much as possible. And Kyle Benson's been a playmaker. He's one of the 3 guys on the outside that have been consistent all year long for Eckerman and the Polar Bear offense, both him, Calando, Fueline, Andrews out there as well. So it didn't surprise me when the running game's just unfortunately not been the best. This is also a team, though, Mitch, that, let's remember, lost one of the top running backs in Stark County from last year, and Jason Davide also graduated a number of offensive linemen from last year. So it's a whole new, I feel like if you lose one of the two, that's okay. You're typically going to be able to fix it. To lose both, that's a tough hole. And so Kyle Benson played running back, and he did have a couple nice runs, and really helped Jackson for the first time, I feel like, in quite some time this year, control the clock, control the pace of the game a little bit, because they were able to run for a little bit. But then the inexperience of the offensive line showed up as the game went on. McKinley's defensive line at 10 sacks, I believe, was the final tally. So now, Mitch, you're talking about 2 games in the past 3 weeks where the opposing team has had 10 sacks at Lake and then home against McKinley. That it doesn't matter how talented you are elsewhere. If that's what's going to happen, you're not going to win many more football games. And I thought the Jackson defense, though, for the most part, Mitch, they played really well, because McKinley scored on 2 broken plays. And afterwards, actually, when you read any of the articles that Coach Hall, excuse me, name was like escaped me there for a second. Coach Antonio Hall for the Bulldogs said tonight we were more lucky than we were good. And Mitch, it's hard not to agree with him. You and I were there. We saw the first play that ends up going all the way down inside the 10. McKinley's first drive, snap over Keaton Road's head. Everybody's going after the ball. The safety start crashing because it looks like that. Keaton Road picks it up, has the awareness to look downfield, tosses a strike, and then Mitch, the one in the third quarter or fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The awareness of Nino Hill, I think, is what you have to talk about. Like, yes, it was over the quarterback's head. It was way over this time. And Nino Hill, the running back who was back there with him, alertly goes and gets it, turns around, and almost does like a 3-yard shovel pass that goes to the house, because it was another broken play. And that's what Coach Hall was meaning. Like, yeah, Nino Hill made a heads-up play. Like, that was great. But the ball bounced a certain way for him to be able to get it when it was loose.
Well, yeah.
And so we're more lucky than good tonight.
Well, Hill's pass was the shovel to Dante McClellan, who went 53 yards, but that set up Road getting into the end zone a few plays later. And yeah, but that was one of the instances where they just were able to recover after it seemed like disaster was about to strike. And as you mentioned, Jackson wasn't able to build anything up after Carson Pistorius found the end zone in that first drive. 10 sacks, you mentioned, just seemed like they weren't able. There were so many punts, just so many punts. It looked like a Vanderbilt. Was it Vanderbilt that had that meme that happened this week where the punter had like 11,000 career yards? It doesn't matter. The point was McKinley did what they had to do. They have to look more impressive, though, not just in the Massillon game a couple weeks from now, but next week they have the chance to win the Federal League title outright in their game against the Golden Eagles, which we'll be there for on Big Time Sports. McKinley's gotten the job done against the two teams that they needed to beat, Jackson and Lake, to really set off the rest of the teams in the Federal League. But now, got to beat Glen Oak. If you beat Glen Oak, you win the Federal League, you're pretty much set up for the playoffs already. But then you got the big test coming in week 10. Can they take on this Massillon team? Who knows? Because Massillon still remains one of the top teams. They beat Fitch 42-7, as I think people kind of expected, but now they're going to have a couple of tough tests here later on in the year. A road matchup, by the way, for the Tigers, which was good for them. Glen Oak beat Louisville badly 42-7. Perry outlasted Green 20-14. A good victory for the Panthers there. Lake beat Hoover 21-7. A couple other matches up in here. I'll go to the IVC. Sandy Valley beating Claymont 48-19. East Canton beating Central Catholic of Tuscarawas 41-0. Malvern beat Newcomerstown 21-7, which pretty much wraps up the IVC North for Malvern. But how about Canton South, by the way, barely getting by Fairless 41-35. We were kind of expecting the Wildcats to have a sizable win, and the Falcons did anything but that. It was a very good performance by AJ Starball's squad, but Poochie Snyder and the Wildcats remain unbeaten to remain one of the top teams in Stark County, even for a team that's outside the Federal League, the big school league.
Yeah, I think you and I both expected. I think first off, you and I both expected Poochie Snyder to play when we talked Friday, and after that, though, I'm not surprised at the final score because Coach Starball is such a very good head coach that he was going to have his guys ready to play. You know that. I think somewhere in the back of their minds, it was said, they have to bring Poochie back tonight because they know we can beat him without him. So get up for to me, that gets your guys to rise up for that moment almost, whether it was actually said or not, I don't know. But something along those lines is what I'm kind of wondering if that was said. And, the Fairless Falcons showed up and played their behind off. And when are we going to start talking about Canton South maybe not just being one of the best teams in Stark County?
When they get to the playoffs and start playing these sort of first of all, they have a matchup in week 10 against previously unbeaten Northwest. The Northwest Wildcats were doing well this year too, but they just lost to CVCA. So now the Wildcats are the only remaining unbeaten team in the Pac-7. So there's that matchup there. Now, obviously, I would take South in a matchup right now over Northwest, but that's not going to be an easy game. And then you got to go to the postseason, where the postseason really does differentiate the pretenders from the contenders when it comes to these sort of stacking ups in the conferences and even in the area power rankings, which we are now doing on Big Time Sports' Facebook page. You can check that out weekly.
Nice segue there.
Oh.
I honestly forget what I was going to say.
That's okay. We can keep it here. We can keep it right moving. I was going to say here, Rome Cox was a big part of the Wildcats' win over the Falcons. He had 2 touchdowns in the game. But yeah, I mean, Fairless gave him a game. Carson Colucci had a couple of touchdowns late in the game. There was an onside kick from Fairless that the Wildcats did recover, so that notched them the victory. The Falcons, I think, are a little bit better than 2-6, which they are right now. But it's just kind of been a tough stretch for them, where they lost Sandy Valley early on in the year. And I just don't think they've been able to break that sort of funk even this late in the season. So yeah, I mean, you give credit to the Falcons for putting themselves in that game, but the Wildcats remain this is one of the best seasons in South memory that I can think of. Going through some of the IVC scores in there, we have Garaway remaining unbeaten, 58-0 over Tusky Valley. Tusky Valley at one point was undefeated this year, like 4-0, and they've just had a slide since then. Then Buckeye Trail beat Strasburg. We mentioned a couple of the other scores there, so that's it. Gonna be an interesting one here in a couple weeks. Indian Valley, by the way, beating Ridgeway. I can't believe I almost forgot that. 34-12, which is a statement victory for Matt Lancaster's squad. A big victory there. Hey, Stark County, it's your friends from the local Board of Mental Health and Addiction Recovery, and we have a challenge for you. We're asking you to create a new habit and check in on someone every day. Nothing fancy, just a simple text, phone call, or note on social media to ask someone how they're doing. You don't have to be a professional, you just have to ask and then listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Text 4HOPE to 741-741 anytime, day or night, or dial 988. Brought to you by Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
You invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partnered with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going. Disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
Okay. I want to move on to college football. But not just because of what Ohio State did against Maryland, but because of the games that happened this week. I want to start by talking about the Buckeyes. I didn't watch the first half for a reason, because these are always one of those trap games that this Maryland wouldn't normally be a trap game if they weren't 5-0 this year. I thought to myself, okay, can this offense match up against Ohio State in Columbus? Surely enough, no. But in that first half, the defense for the Terps were definitely getting to Ohio State early. And I don't know. I'm happy we keep winning. I'm happy we keep matching up here in the Big Ten rankings. I'm just hoping that I look at what Michigan's at right now. And I don't mean to keep like looking at weeks ahead, because you have another trap game coming up here against Purdue in West Lafayette. That's one of the biggest trap games I've ever had growing up. Michigan keeps like easily winning these games. And I'm hoping this is an example of the Big Ten schedule just really not giving them any big tests. Like what's the most quality win that Michigan has had this season? As I look up their schedule, I can't really think of like
Rutgers.
Maybe. I mean, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Michigan. That's just in the last couple of weeks. You had East Carolina. Yeah, there's no game here until we get to November 11th that Michigan's going to have a serious test against a ranked opponent. So it's going to be that 3-week stretch where Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State all try to beat each other up to try and win the Big Ten and get to the playoff. That I'm kind of like, okay, well, I know Michigan's ahead of us right now, and people say, "Oh, Michigan now looks so good." I don't know how to gauge it. Yeah. I think we'd be more comfortable if Ohio State looked more dominant, and they're not really doing that right at this moment. They had the win against Notre Dame, great, but we'll get to the Irish in a second. Well, we see them beat Maryland coming out of the bye, looking very sluggish. That's the biggest thing right now is that Ohio State has struggled to put together 2 complete halves of football. Even in even their good victories this year, they had a good first half, or no, they had a low scoring first half against the Irish, and then had the third quarter, and then held on for the victory in the fourth. But we haven't had like a game this year where it's dominating the first half, and then you're just able to kind of coast in the second half. I think that's what Michigan's kind of been doing to allow people to think to themselves, okay, Michigan can kind of just coast until they have to really turn it on for the big teams. Ohio State's really not doing that right now, and I think Ohio State just needs to find a way to get itself more comfortable in these 21-point favorite matchups, because you did that against Western Kentucky, but that's because you should. You kind of didn't do it against Youngstown State, even though you got away from them. You kind of didn't do it against Indiana, kind of didn't do it against Maryland, but I digress. I'm just hoping that this week you do what you have to do on the road, and then you have the big test the week before Halloween.
I think when it comes to the college teams and everything, we're trying to determine who's number one, right? Like Georgia still has not looked as good as they have in past years. Michigan, though, Mitch, has probably looked like the most impressive team. But to your point, it's because of who they're playing. They've played nobody yet. But you can only play those on your schedule. And until they lose, slip up, they're going to stay up there. I think that there's no harm in saying this now. This is the first time in quite some time that there's, I think, legitimately 10 to 12 teams that could win the national championship this year. I don't know. We're going to find out here soon, right? You mentioned the 3-week stretch of Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan. Okay, that's going to happen with SEC teams, especially when it comes to the conference championship weekend. I mean, this weekend we get Oregon and Washington. We're going to know something about both those teams, 5-0. That's actually a tremendous game, 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. But Notre Dame's out of it. But Mitch, USC keeps winning, yet dropping. And I told you, I don't think they're that good.
Well, they were down 17-0 to Arizona and had to come back in overtime to beat them.
Yeah, like that's impressive, but at the same time, they should have never been down 17-0 to start. Like that, not against that inferior opponent. I feel bad for Notre Dame, and I can't believe I said that. But we're talking out here right now about Michigan, and they haven't played anybody. Yet poor Notre Dame. Their schedule for 4 straight weeks was Ohio State at home, at Duke on the road, who was ranked, at Louisville on the road, who's ranked, and now this week at home against USC.
Yeah.
Like that is a brutal 4-game stretch. And we're going to sit here and crucify them because they're losing. It's not you and I, not you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
People out there saying they're not back anything. It's like, I'd like to see him play Michigan. I'd like to see what Michigan can do against a team like Notre Dame, because I think Notre Dame's a good team. I don't think they're national championship bound or anything like that, but I just think it's interesting. This is the first year, I think, in so many years that we have so many question marks that we need answered, and we want the answers now, but we're not going to get them, fortunately.
Well, I think I'll give you a maximum of 10. The top 10 I can see any team making it in here, maybe save for one that we'll get to here in a second. But the Big Ten's going to beat each other up. The Pac-12 is going to beat each other up. You can't have 3 Pac-12 teams at the end of the year still vying for a playoff spot. You can't have 3 Big Ten teams in there as well. So you can probably subtract 4 of those, and it's probably down to like 6 or 7. You can put Georgia in there. They're not going to play anybody until the SEC championship, and even then, maybe Michigan and Ohio State's winner will probably be in there, unless Penn State can remain unbeaten against those 2. Florida State can kind of coast on that ACC schedule right now and make its way in, probably as the 4th seed, which it probably will be if it wins out. And then there's Oklahoma. Oklahoma got itself back into the race with this win against Texas, where it was so frustrating because you think, oh, Texas is going to pull it out. They get this huge field goal at the end of the victory with like a minute left. And Oklahoma just marches its way down the field like it was nothing. Dylan Gabriel he's a fine quarterback, but he didn't impress me on that drive. Texas was playing so far back that I'm like, what are you doing? And then you have the pass interference call at the end. They let them win that game. That's what was frustrating about it. And now Oklahoma's gonna match itself up in the Big 12. They can win that matchup again, which I know we're gonna hook the horns down. Yeah. I was gonna say Oklahoma, the standings in the Big 12, as I look these up here, which I should have done before. I mean it's one division. So it's right now it's Oklahoma and West Virginia in the Big 12 championship, which I can't believe I'm saying that right now, but it's true. Yeah, that's where we are right now. Unless does Texas play West Virginia later on in the year? They do not. So it's really all up to West Virginia as to whether or not Texas is able to get itself in. Yeah, that was frustrating to see on Saturday because I thought Texas had it and I thought Texas was going to remain in that mix, and maybe they could work its way back in if they beat Oklahoma in the Big 12 title game and work their way back in. That's going to make the committee think, okay, they've recouped from the one blemish they've had on the record this season. But now it's not looking great for Texas.
So it seems like it's safe to say that Texas is in fact not back.
It's jury's still out for this year, but it's very difficult to.
I'm going to go ahead and just overrule the jury here. So Texas is not back. Horns down. I'm never a believer in Texas until they're back, which in fact will be never. Clip this, post this everywhere. I'm not worried about this one bit because they're going to SEC next.
Yeah.
And Steve Sarkisian is not going to be okay in the SEC. I'll just tell you that right now. He can't even be okay in the Big 12. So, yeah, this didn't surprise me. You were texting me during this game. I was telling you what I had bet wise, and then you replied with a nice tweet of a number you think I should call. But that's neither here nor there. At not one point did I feel confident Saturday morning thinking Texas was going to win that football game. It was the prime letdown spot. Mitch, it almost sounded like there were more Oklahoma fans there, and it was a neutral site game in the state of Texas, just at the Cotton Bowl. And so it's like, if you're Texas, now it's not a short, or not a long drive or long trip or anything, but still.
Sure.
There's no way possible that game should be harder for you to play than when you did and you went to Alabama and beat Alabama. Yet they made it seem like it was harder. And I give Oklahoma a ton of credit. And it was the first time I've gotten to hear it in 2 years. I don't think we knew each other before this, but I was always fascinated at any time the Clemson Tigers played a game on ESPN, how many times they mentioned the words Brent Venables defense for Clemson as why they were so good. I actually had a tracker when Ohio State beat Clemson in the Sugar Bowl in 2020-21.
I remember that.
Yeah. So I actually had a tracker live on Twitter that night for how many times he said it. And then I haven't heard it for 2 years, but then Saturday, I heard Kirk Herbstreit out of the words. This is that Brent Venables defense. And that's when I knew the Sooners are back. This is a huge win. And the guts that quarterback had on Saturday.
The guts to throw to wide open receivers.
No, just in general. I mean, you're talking about a young kid, the plays he made with his legs and whatnot. I mean, You're talking, you're pressed for time, right? You know, you're losing. Your goal's getting field goal range. I also did not even know he was throwing that ball to the end zone to a wide open guy because he kind of blended in with the turf at first. I thought it was just going to the other guy way up front, or he was throwing it away. But I just thought it was a gutsy performance from Oklahoma. And yeah, I'm not a believer in Texas. I will never be a believer in Texas.
Clearly I can see that. But yeah, that's where college football stands right now. We'll cover it more throughout this coming week. Again, hoping it's not a trap in Purdue. We had the 2018 matchup. Even the games we won there before, I've always been nervous about them going into those games. So
last time we went to Purdue was the last game that we got blown out with Dwayne Haskins as quarterback, Urban Meyer as head coach.
Yeah. So that we're hoping it's not more of the same.
Vive Auto Sales, located on West High Avenue in New Philadelphia and Cleveland Avenue in Canton, is a used car dealership committed to getting financing for everyone. We give every customer that walks in our showrooms a prime buying experience, no matter their credit score or financial situation. Current inventory can be viewed at www.wefinancenow.com. Check out our Facebook pages for the most up-to-date information about upcoming events and promotions happening at Vive Auto Sales.
Are you trying to increase your speed, quickness, vertical leap, and agility? If so, NST Sports Performance is for you. NST trains athletes ages 5 through pro. NST designs each program specific to the athlete's needs, goals, and sports. For more, visit nstsports.com. Locations in North Canton and New Philadelphia. It's nstsports.com.
If you're looking for a new or pre-owned car or truck, why not see the Parkway Auto Group? Parkway is a special group of automotive experts with 8 brands to satisfy your needs. Come see the difference at the Parkway Auto Group on Commercial Parkway in Dover. 8 brands and 1 family. It's Parkway Auto Group.
The Furby Electric Supply Company has bright ideas for your home. Save money by converting to energy-efficient electrical products or add ambiance with beautiful lighting features. It begins with a professional consultation and a visit to the Furby Lighting Showroom. Then certified Furby contractors complete your project right and on time. Since 1934, 4 generations have built a reputation of quality and trust, and they offer emergency services too. Just visit Furby.com. That's F-U-R-B-A-Y. The Furby Electric Supply Company.
It takes a lot of practice to have a winning team. Albin Title has over 100 years of combined experience handling real estate, title, and escrow transactions. They serve Tuscarawas, Stark, Carroll, Harrison counties, and more. So choose Albin Title for your next home refinance, sale, or purchase. They'll get it done quickly and professionally. Contact Albin Title at 330-334-5800 or visit their website albintitle.com. Let them put their experience to work for you.
We all have 206 things in common. Our bones keep us up and moving. And we at Cleveland Clinic Union Hospital care about every single one of them. From the tip of your finger to a brand new hip, our orthopedic experts will keep you going while keeping you safe. For every break and breakthrough, for every bone and joint, for every care in the world. Get the care you need when and where you need it. Visit unionhospital.org.
Fall is in the air and part-time career enhancement courses at Buckeye Career Center are on the horizon. Registration is now open for Introduction to Beekeeping, Basic Small Engine Repair, and Sign Language. These part-time offerings run on Tuesday evenings and begin in November. Let Buckeye Career Center help you learn a new skill or advance your current skill set. Call 330-339-2288 for more information or to reserve your seat in one of these or our other part-time classes.
Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder. A simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery. Now, speaking of worried football teams, Browns are not beating the Niners this week. I'm comfortable going on record and saying this is not going to be Victory Monday for us this week. And it's not their fault. It's not the Browns' fault. San Francisco's just they're a different animal right now.
Say it. They're the best team in the football league. In the National Football League, San Francisco's the best team.
I don't know if they're it's hard to say if they're the best because I think the NFC is stronger than the AFC, but I mean Philadelphia is still unbeaten, but they haven't looked as dominating. And people who are getting on the Cowboys for losing that game, I don't think it's necessarily that the Cowboys are bad. I just think that's the difference between a good football team and a juggernaut. I know you're shaking your head right now, but Dallas isn't even the best team in their own division, and it's clear now. Like we can see it,
let alone their own state. But yeah, that's right. That's right. CJ Stroud and them boys.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Come on, man! Don't do that. And look, CJ's doing a lot of great things right now, so I'm happy for him. Just don't miss me with every single ounce of that. Come on, man. That's so stupid.
Prescott is the most overrated quarterback in the NFL. And I've said it for like 3 or 4 years now. I would never touch him on fantasy football, and I've yet to ever draft him, and it's never going to happen. And you're talking to a guy here that lost Aaron Rodgers 4 plays in to start the season. Okay. I think the Cowboys are vastly overrated. And yes, they get blown out of proportion because they're America's team. No, the hell they aren't. Nobody cares about the giant fancy star and the palace that Jerry built or whatever it's called. Okay, Jerry needs to retire because he's never going to win a Super Bowl as the general manager of the Cowboys. Okay, he's a Hall of Famer, all-time great. Congrats, I get that. You know, you're down the street from me forever with your bronze bust in Canton. The Cowboys are so overrated. I just don't understand why we can't just openly say it. They got blown out Sunday night. And not one time did I think they were ever going to have a shot in that game. Their defense, whether they lost Travion Diggs or not, I still thought their defense was overrated. Now losing him does play a big factor. Micah Parsons is legit. I'm not going to dismiss that. I'm saying he's fully capable of being a guy to take over a game. Their offensive line stinks. Tony Pollard now is starting to be seen as, oh, he was good because he could keep his legs fresh, much like we had in Cleveland with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb at the same time. Mike McCarthy doesn't know what he's doing half the time. Like, let's just be honest. This team is just overrated. I think San Francisco offensively, the question has been, is Brock Purdy this good, or is Brock Purdy a benefit of the environment he's in? I think both can be true.
Yeah.
I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback, and I think he is in the best possible situation with Kyle Shanahan, that great offensive line, Christian McCaffrey, who's now scored in 16 straight regular season games, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle offensively, Mitch. It doesn't get much better than that. And then defensively, they're disgusting. I don't want any part of that. And I think that's why Deshaun Watson may not play this Sunday, because he knows damn well where Nick Foles is going to line up along the line. And it's going to be in front of your favorite left tackle of all time, Jed Wills.
Okay, so let's kind of get into this. There were reports on Monday that Deshaun Watson was not practicing outside with the Browns team in their Berea facilities. It was indoors, which led everybody to think, oh, you might as well just said Deshaun Watson didn't practice at all on Monday. You might as well have just said that. So I don't know what's going on Tuesday. I haven't seen the reports yet as of now, but I'm sure they'll be coming up here soon. The whole thing last week where I think he led on the Browns to believe that he was healthier than he was. And when he just couldn't get it going, he's like, all right, we're not going to play. And the team, I don't think I don't think they were ready at all. I think they just weren't as ready as they should have been for the potential of that. And because Dorian Thompson-Robinson looked like a 5th round draft pick on Sunday, I think that's where Browns fans are in a panic now, because it's either we have to pedal out our slightly injured quarterback, starting quarterback, or we have to bring in a guy who's not ready for the professional league yet. So that's kind of where I'm at with this, where San Francisco is just a more ready team to play. They're a more well-rounded team. People are now they've been using the videos of Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel on the Browns sideline from back in 2014 now as like, I know we're a doom and gloom fan base a lot of the time, but not all the time, but a lot of the time. But it's getting to a point where it's ridiculous. They were on the roster at one point. They're not anymore. Let it go. Bill Belichick and Nick Saban were on this roster back, coaching staff back in '95. Let it go.
Well, they were let go for obvious reasons out of the control.
Yeah, but Baltimore had the opportunity to keep them, and we'll never know what the history books would be like if they had made that decision. But anyway, I'm kind of just reserved to the fact that there's a better team is coming to Cleveland this Sunday, and if we lose, then that's expected. If you win, then it's unexpected. You get one there. So
Mitch,
I'm more frustrated with the Steelers beating the Ravens this week than I would be the Browns losing to the Niners.
Yeah, because the Steelers are the worst first-place team I've ever seen.
It's so stupid.
To see a defense be able to bail out a team as much as the Pittsburgh Steelers defense does, and to see their crowd actively booing and chanting to fire their offensive coordinator during games. Look, man, we know the lowest of the lows.
Yeah.
We probably did that with Joe Woods, didn't we?
Here's the thing. We all saw the clip of Canada on that last touchdown that Pickett threw.
Yeah.
What happened there?
I think Kenny Pickett audibled.
Do you think he did? I didn't know if he was like so focused on the game that he didn't want to celebrate. That was very interesting.
I really do.
Because the Steelers fan base hates Matt Canada. We know that. It's one thing if they hate him and the team's just kind of sticking by him, but it's because you see the things like what was that one clip? There was a clip of the Steelers walking into the locker room. It might have been at halftime of a game or after a victory. I don't remember. You hear Canada cheering something, and the kicker for the Steelers, Chris Ballard, he says you hear him say something along the lines of, wasn't because of you though. And I don't know if that was necessarily targeted towards Canada or if this was at something else out of context. That's what people are starting to latch on to. Like even the team's starting to hate him now. And if it is, it's kind of for good reason. The offense is terrible. Kenny Pickett doesn't know how to throw football until there's 2 minutes left in a close game. And then for some reason, he just throws to Pickens all the time. And he's
wide open. Like just somehow always wide open.
Baltimore had so many drops yesterday that would have gone for scores or big gains. It was ridiculous. And to blame Lamar Jackson is ridiculous because he's the one that's keeping you in these games and getting you guys out ahead. But to see this Steelers team be 3-2 is so frustrating. Because this is not, if it was a good team, it's one thing. If this was like the 11-0 Steelers from 2020, it's fine. But this is not fine. This is a mid Steelers team. And for Steeler fans, mid might as well be 4-13.
This is a team with a negative 31 point differential. That's in first place in the AFC North.
So why can't we beat them? Why can't the Ravens beat them? I don't know.
It doesn't make the only thing I know that I was happy to see is that TJ Watt doesn't only just go off against us because he was a menace against
even he now is probably the most dangerous defender, like single defender in the league now, even more so than Miles, even more so than a number of other guys, maybe even more so than what his brother used to do. It's frustrating how the Steelers always do this. They always find a way. They could have a college roster on their team and somehow go 9-8. Which, for them, it's a disaster because they're good enough to make the playoffs, but then they get ousted in the first week and they don't get any high draft picks and they don't know, they don't do that. But that's never been the Steelers thing. They always pick in the 20s. They always pick some guy that'll be serviceable for them, and they'll always find a way to make that guy, if not a perennial Pro Bowl or a perennial starter. Whereas, other teams, it's not as successful. But yeah, that's where we are.
All I'm going to say before we end this segment is, I don't think Deshaun Watson should play Sunday.
You don't think he should play Sunday?
I don't. Do you have full confidence that this offensive line can keep a guy who's right now protected? Because I don't.
Some guys I do, and some guys I don't. Which ones?
Primarily the left side of the offensive line, like everybody else here in Cleveland's worried about.
I'm so happy everyone's gone on my side. I'm so happy. Nothing against him personally, but God, I've been frustrated with him for the last 3 years.
You then go to Indianapolis. There's a chance there's no Anthony Richardson there. Right? That's a winnable game. You go to Seattle. They don't scare me, Mitch. They really don't. Not with how this defense is. I think our secondary can keep those guys in check. Then you come home and you play Arizona. They're a gritty football team. I will give them that.
Yeah.
They are a lot better than what I thought they would be, which was the worst.
Cincinnati a game.
And then they go to Baltimore. Your next 3 games, I think, are extremely winnable. And if you cannot, obviously you can't promise because things happen, but when you're going against this front that the Niners have, I think even with a healthy Deshaun Watson, it's going to be tough to beat this team. And so why risk the chance that he gets hit and falls on that shoulder and then he's out significantly longer? And we're sitting here in weeks 6, 7, 8 talking about how the season's over because we're 2-4, 2-5 because DTR has to play quarterback the rest of the year. It's
God, or PJ Walker, XFL MVP PJ Walker.
Yeah, it's very. I just don't know if I would be okay with him playing. And that's just me being brutally honest here. This 49ers team is legit. And I just think that I think they have to be number one in any power ranking there is right now. And then everybody else after that.
Okay. So it was the XFL. I had to check if PJ Walker's the USFL or the XFL. Okay. Have you checked in on someone yet today? This is your reminder, a simple text, call, or message. You don't have to be a professional to check in. You just have to ask and listen. Are you someone who could use a check-in? Dial 988 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A message from Stark County Mental Health and Addiction Recovery.
Wendy's without the Wendy's app is like Nugs without the sauce. Or a Frosty without the fries. Or a hamburger without the fresh beef. No! Level up. Get the app to order ahead, order delivery, earn free food, and get app-exclusive offers. One app, all the Wendy's.
Offer for a limited time at participating Wendy's. Terms apply. App registration required. Fresh beef available in the contiguous U.S., Alaska, and Canada.
You deserve the best. And at Ferris Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac, Toyota, that's what you get. We consider you, the customer, to be part of our family. Anybody can make promises, but when you visit Ferris, you get the Ferris deal from a Ferris wheel. So if you're looking for a car, truck, or van, think Ferris.
Think Ferris. Where you matter.
You matter. Everyone plays a part. We all have a role. Each of us can make a difference. You do matter, and the best way to have a positive impact is to pay it forward. With each of us helping one another to cope, feel better, and know that we belong. Pass on the positivity today. Tell someone else they matter too. Alt Care.
Alt Care, Alt Care. Where you matter.
invest a lot in your home and vehicle purchases. Van Nostrand Young and Associates want you to feel secure should anything happen to those investments. We partner with providers like Grange Insurance and other industry leaders to be sure you're presented with the most complete coverage to fit your needs. Because we're not only here to protect the items you invest in, we're here to protect your future as well.
Call Van Nostrand Young Insurance in North Canton at 330-497-1867.
Happy Sardiversary with Sarda rider Anthony. We're celebrating 25 years with our valued riders.
And I absolutely enjoy riding the buses. I get to know a few of the drivers, very respectful, very professional. Just an all-around about good experience. It helps people get to where they're going. Disabled, veterans, or people going to work.
Thanks to all our riders as we celebrate Sarda 25 at Sarda.
You need to remodel your bath? You need JR Bath Company. Trust in the quality of JR Bath. It's fast, it's safe, and it's affordable. Call today at 1-800-664-2284 or go to jrbath.com. Yeah, so there's that. Let us know in the comment section, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, if Deshaun Watson should play this week against the Browns. We'll probably clip this as well. Baseball. Baseball's so fun. Baseball last night was fun, Mitch. I want to bring up a clip with you. This is one of the first games that I ever watched from Major League Baseball's postseason. It was Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS, Mets versus Cardinals. Scott Rowland takes Oliver Perez for a yard, and then, oh, that was awesome. By the way, shout out Oliver Perez, former Indians left-hander. We really picked him out of the graveyard. Anyway, that play, to me, growing up, was always the greatest catch I had ever seen in a Major League Baseball game because it was clearly over the wall. That ball was going over the fence. You have so many of these home runs where like guys go up and they jump like 2 feet and they jump right at the warning track, and it's like, oh, he took a home run away from him. No, he didn't. He took a ball that would have bounced off the wall and gotten it. That one was going over though. Now, last night wasn't a robbery, but it was one of the great double ups we have seen in a long time, where Michael Harris tracked down a ball from Nick Castellanos that would have made it a 4-0 ball game. Actually, would have made it a 5-5 ball game. That play last night, I thought, oh no, is this going to be the Phillies again? But then he makes a catch. They throw it back in, and the great double up by Austin Riley, who came up clutch in the 8th inning with a full count and hit a one-handed home run. You look at that replay, the bat is mostly in his one hand, roped that one over the left field wall, and then backed up Jeter style to get that double up of Bryce Harper. One of the best endings we've seen to a playoff baseball game in a long time. And the Braves get no hit in that game through the 6th inning. And they somehow find a way to win that game and take the series back to Philly, which is where I think the Phillies have missed a grand opportunity to do what they did last year and really not allow the Braves to get any momentum. Braves had an opportunity here to get back to Philly and take the victory.
Yeah, last night's game, Mitch, was incredible. Philly jumping out to the 3-0 lead, then 4-0 lead. The no-hitter going through the first 5, I believe. It was almost like with how that once Real Muto hit that 2-run shot to make it 3-0, you could have heard a pin drop inside. Is it Truist Park, I believe, where the Braves play now? And yet this team, the best team all season in baseball, record-wise, you figured they were going to have one last chance to kind of fight, especially because they go down 0-2, Mitch. The odds are they aren't coming back home for Game 5, just because Philly is a rambunctious place to go play. It's one of the best from a TV standpoint. I think watching the game on television, it looks like it's one of the best atmospheres to play October baseball in from what we saw last year. I'm glad you mentioned the Derek Jeter thing, because Austin Riley being where he was in that throw, that's not something you practice. That's not something you necessarily are planning for. That's just a guy with a high baseball IQ, realizing the throw is offline, realizing I got to get this ball, and then having the awareness to pick it up, fire the throw from the position he was in to double off Bryce Harper. It was a tremendous 8th and 9th inning. And I mean, that place was going nuts, and I loved it. And, you know, I posted 3 different things in my story last night, and people were probably like, is this guy a Braves
Saw
fan?
that, yeah.
No. The home run he hit, I live for moments like that. The catch was amazing. And the third one with no commentary whatsoever, hearing that crowd and the euphoria they have roar. It's something special. And I got to experience it last year in Cleveland in game 3 against the Yankees when Oscar Gonzalez hit the walk-off. Like, that place was so loud. And then there's the clip out there of the guy recording it from his apartment window, and you hear I love moments like that. And that's what playoff baseball is. And let's be honest, Mitch, the Orioles Texas ALDS has not been much of a series. It's been all Texas.
Yeah.
The Diamondbacks have been kicking the crap out of the Dodgers.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
The Twins and Astros are tied 1-1. Like, that's an actual competitive series. I'm very excited to see, even if they're in their division. I'm very excited to see what happens coming back to Minnesota. They play today at 4:00. I think we are in a spot, though, where we might be seeing a game 5 in Atlanta between the Phillies and Braves. And I hope we get to see that, because I do think Philly will be able to go home and get one. The question is now, though, if Atlanta can build off that, and if Philly's absolutely just demoralized off that loss, this could end at 4 with the Braves winning. But if Philly can get over that quick, I think we're in a spot, Mitch, where we might be in for 3 more really, really entertaining and good playoff baseball games in the National League Division Series.
We might be. I mean, looking at that Dodgers Diamondback series, like Dodgers Padres made sense. It was surprising, but it made sense last year when the Dodgers got upset in that series, because, you know, you have a bunch of big names in that lineup, a couple of really big names in the pitching rotation that were able to will you to that victory. I can name 2 guys on Arizona's roster from memory: Corbin Carroll and Evan Longoria. That's it. Maybe Lourdes Gurriel, but this is like, what? Why do the Dodgers always do this? Like, it's so frustrating. And then, of course, you mentioned that series between Texas and Baltimore. That's ending today. That series is done. Of course, by the time I upload this, the Orioles might be up 4-0 early on in the game, because it takes a while for us to upload these episodes. But Texas has gotten off to a hot start in both of those games. Baltimore gave them a bit of a scare there at the end, game 2. But, I mean, Texas is just, that offense is a juggernaut. They're apparently listening to Creed during the pregame warm-ups. So, you know, they're getting hyped there. Twins did what they had to do. I'm impressed with the Twins coming back against the Astros. So now they've made it a series. Look, as much as I want to say I was right and say the ALCS is going to run through Texas, just give me Twins and Rangers, please. Just do it. Just give me someone different. It's not because the Astros hate it anymore. I've given that up. It's the fact that the Astros have made 6 consecutive ALCS series, and we're one game away from making it 7 World Series in a row. From 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 5 World Series in a row potentially. Because 2019 they made it, 2020 they lost to the Rays, but they came back from 3-0, 21, 22, 23. I can't take it anymore. Just give me Twins or Rangers, preferably Rangers. I mean, Rangers are interesting to me. And then I don't know who they could play in the NLCS. Maybe the Braves. I don't know. What is your matchup right now of all the series you want to see? Do you want to see Astros Phillies part 2? Because I don't.
No, unless you could promise me the Phillies are going to win.
Fair.
That's only because I don't want to see the Astros win again. I like seeing the new blood. That's why I think at the start of the postseason, I was like, you know what? Let's see the Orioles get there, and maybe the Braves, because it's 2 best records from respective sides.
Yeah.
I think right now I'm fine with either Texas or Minnesota making it the American League. I did place the future in March on the Astros to win the American League. So, I mean, I won't be upset if they get there, but I don't know. I'm also curious, like, can Arizona keep it up? If they knock off the Dodgers here and move on, can they keep it up against the teams like the Braves or the Phillies? And I'm very intrigued to see if that's possible, but I just, so far, there's been some really, really great postseason baseball moments, and there's going to be more, because there always is every October. I mean, you look back to the last year in the NLCS and that Bryce Harper homer, that might be one of the greatest things and highlights of his career, and made every single part of that contract he signed with the Phillies worth it. I think right now I would probably tell you, I think Texas looks like the best team in the American League from what we've seen in the 4 teams so far. Arizona's the hottest. I don't necessarily know if they're the best right now. They're definitely the hottest. I still think the winner of the Braves-Phillies division series is probably going to represent the National League in the World Series. But I have no issue with that whatsoever. I think I can get behind watching the Phillies, man. They're a fun baseball team. They really are.
Sure. No, the Phillies I'd be fine with if they come back and beat Atlanta here. I think it's more so just Atlanta just letting it go for the second consecutive year against them that people would be frustrated by, particularly those in Atlanta. And then if it was like Phillies Rangers, could be interesting. Phillies Twins. I'd like to see maybe Orioles make a comeback, but I don't think it's viable at this point. I mean, Texas is just too good. So I don't know. We'll figure out here in a couple of weeks. And by the way, I know it's a big emphasis this year has been about people have been using the Dolby audio thing to like edit these calls so that it's only the crowd noise. Very cool. Don't get me wrong. It's very cool to hear that just crowd noise at all. But I want to give props, and I think you'll agree with me on this because I saw your tweet last night. Shout out to Brian Anderson for his tracking of that entire play at the end there. One of the most underrated play-by-play national guys in the league. And he was able to describe that call really well towards the end, whereas, it can be very difficult to track everything that's going on at once.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially in that spot, too, right? That ball looks like it's probably going to go for a hit, right? You have Harper who, and this is the other thing I want to say, that the people that are upset with Harper getting thrown out there.
It's a risk.
If that ball gets down and he doesn't score, people are still crucifying Bryce Harper.
Yeah, it's a risk. You're taking a risk.
So you pick your poison. I had no issue with that because in that moment, you have to tie that baseball game up. If that ball gets down, and Michael Harris made a phenomenal catch, Mitch.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, that was one of the better catches we've seen in quite some time. And it was just all around good baseball, just heat of the moment things. And Bryce Harper is a smart baseball player. He thought it was going to get down. I think a lot of people thought it was going to get down. But Brian Anderson is one of the most criminally underrated play-by-play announcers that are out there. There's no doubt about it.
It's because he's on TBS. TBS. I mean, don't get me wrong. TBS is a pretty solid what they cover in the playoffs, and they have a good theme music, and they're able to. You definitely feel the playoff atmosphere there. But when you compare it to something like Fox, I think Fox is the number one playoff coverage. It goes Fox, TBS, and then ESPN, only because ESPN kind of feels, because they do so many games per year, it almost feels like it still feels like a regular season game when they're in the playoffs, because they're also in the wild card as well. But I'm fine with that either way. By the way, my fact of the day, before you get to your fact of the day, you mentioned that play. Castellanos' ball would have been a home run in 5 major league parks, and StatCast had a 610 expected batting average on that hit. So that, again, it wasn't expected to be a catch. And Harper, usually you don't cross second base on a hit like that. You want to put yourself just before it so you can maybe run back. But that play, he thought, oh, it's down, I'm good. And then when you get back, you got to rush. And then I thought he maybe could have, like that, his slide at the end, I'm like, okay, maybe you could have gotten back a little faster. But who am I to tell a peak apex Bryce Harper how to get back to a base? I haven't ran the bases in 8 years. So,
and I wouldn't have been on the bases in that situation if I was
exactly
in the spot of Bryce Harper. I would have been getting pinch ran for 99% chance of that happening because I'm not slow, or I'm not fast. I'm very slow. But I think this is going to be one heck of a series, and I'm excited already for Game 3 in Philly. Philly's going to have their number 1 going eventually in Aaron Nola because they didn't get to throw him yet because of them having to play in the wild card series. I think that's also what's interesting with Minnesota now. They throw Sonny Gray tonight. He's been very terrific so far.
Yeah.
And so that's why these games, if you can steal one on the road, you're in a really good spot because you're going to get to throw your ace in a spot to either take the lead in the series or potentially clinch the lead in the series. So, and that's what the Twins are going to be able to do tonight. And I'm very excited. I love playoff baseball. I've said it so much since we started this podcast. And I also want to make it known, I know we talked about it last year, but October is the greatest sporting month in the year. Hockey starts tonight. Basketball's not far behind with their season starting. The middle of the NFL season, middle of the college football season, and playoff baseball. It doesn't get any better than this.
Oh, absolutely. And if there's any people who are listening who are going to be at the Thursday Cavs preseason game, look for me there. I'll be working the sidelines there that night. All right. Thanks for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show. Yeah. Mitch, what's the fact of the day?
The unicorn is the national animal of Scotland.
You said the unicorn is the national animal.
Yes. Although it's a fabled creature, the national animal of Scotland is actually the mythical unicorn, chosen because of its association with dominance and chivalry, as well as purity and innocence in Celtic mythology.
Well, then what's the national animal of Iceland? Like the wildebeest, the woolly mammoth,
You're asking for 2 facts now, Mitch. I only come prepared with 1 fact of the day.
All right. Thanks for listening or watching the Big Time Sports Podcast Show.